We're reading Rebbe Nachman's wisdom. We're on his pilgrimage. 6. When the Rebbe's wife heard this, she was beside herself. She sent her daughter to ask him how it was possible for him to leave them without some means of support. The Rebbe answered his daughter, "You can travel to your fiance's parents. Someone will take in your older sister to live as a nursemaid. Another will take in your younger sister out of pity, and your mother could find work as a cook. And I will send everything in the house for the traveling. I will sell everything in the house for traveling expenses." When the Rebbe's family heard this, they all burst into tears. They wept bitterly, but he had no pity on them. He said, "It is impossible without this. No matter what happens, I must certainly go. For most of me is already there, and the minority must follow the majority." The Rebbe said, "I have set my heart on this journey to the land of Israel. I know that I will find my way blocked with countless barriers, but as long as my soul is in me, I will do whatever it is in my power to go. While there is a spark of life within me, I will continue, and let God do what is good in his eyes." 7. The Rebbe said, "Every step I take to the Holy Land will be at the risk of my life. I want to leave right now, no matter how, even without a penny in my pocket. Those who take pity on me will give me something." Those closest to him immediately traveled to nearby villages to gather a small sum. Accumulating enough for him to leave, he made plans for the journey with the greatest urgency, not wanting to delay for any reason whatsoever. On Lag BaOmer, the 18th day of Iyar, 5558, May 4th, 1798, he set forth quickly and enthusiastically. He made a pact with one of his followers that they travel together. 8. On Lag BaOmer, the Rebbe left his home in Medvedeva, heading towards Nikolaev. There he found a ship transporting grain and took it as far as Odessa. At that time, emissaries and other Jews traveling to the Holy Land were afraid to go by way of Odessa, as the route was rumored to be dangerous. But the Rebbe realized immediately that it was better to take a ship from Odessa for many reasons. First of all, the way from his home was much shorter than by alternative route through Galat. Also, this route avoided a more serious peril, for the route through Galat involved great danger in sailing from the Danube River into the Black Sea. Therefore, the Rebbe ignored the rumors and departed from Nikolaev, taking the route through Odessa to Istanbul. 9. The Rebbe told his attendant to buy a large quantity of ink and writing paper. As soon as they embarked on the ship in Odessa, the Rebbe began to record his thoughts on the Torah. He warned his attendant not to even look at his writings and not to give him the key to his trunk until he had promised on his honor. When they left Odessa, many people came to see the Rebbe off out of respect. Many coaches followed him. A great crowd escorted him joyously, singing and dancing all the way. They boarded the ship and set off on the Black Sea. During their first day at sea, a great storm arose. The winds wiped up high waves that washed over the ship's deck. The Rebbe and his attendant had to remain tightly closed up in their cabin so as to not get soaked by the spray. The thunder, lightning, and howling winds were beyond description. The two were so terrified by the noise of the rain and thunder and the roar of the waves that they found it impossible to sleep at night. After 4 days at sea, they arrived in Istanbul. The Rebbe and his attendant sat on the dock, not knowing where to go. They could not tell the Jews from the Turks, and having no knowledge of the language, had no way of asking. The people saw them sitting on the dock and found a translator who could speak their language. This interpreter acted as their intermediary, immediately finding them lodging in Galata quarter. After an hour or two in Galata, the Rebbe said that he did not want to remain there. The interpreter asked, "Do you want to go to the main part of Istanbul? That section contains the capital and the Sultan's residence." Only men are allowed in that quarter. It is completely off limits to women, and married couples cannot stay there." The Rebbe replied that he would prefer that. The interpreter then told them, "Several emissaries from the Holy Land are staying there, among them 2 of your countrymen. These were 2 in Israel, and are now returning to Europe." As soon as the Rebbe heard this, he agreed to meet them. He told his attendant, "I warn you, do not reveal my identity. If they ask about me, do not tell them who I am." They left Galata and went to the old city of Istanbul. They were introduced to their countrymen who were returning from the Holy Land. One of the pair immediately recognized the Rebbe's attendant. He asked him, "What are you doing here?" The attendant answered, "I am traveling with this young man to the land of Israel." And the other inquired, "But who is he?" The attendant replied, "He has a travel card from the Austrian Kaiser's government." He did not reveal the Rebbe's identity, as he had been warned. They got the idea that the Rebbe was a government agent on his way to make trouble for the great leader, Rabbi Avram Kalesker. They imagined that he had been sent by a number of groups who were opposing Rabbi Avram. They stubbornly clung to this mistaken idea, causing much conflict between themselves and the Rebbe. They began questioning the Rebbe's companion. Is he carrying a letter?" The attendant replied that he was not. "Then why is he going to the Holy Land?" The attendant replied that he did not know. They decided not to rely on the attendant anymore, feeling that he was trying to mislead them. They told him, "Even though we knew you to be an honorable man, we have grave doubts that you have retained your integrity." Not realizing that they were referring to the mysterious stranger, they asked the attendant, "Have you asked your master, Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, if you should travel with this man?" He answered that he had, but by this time they no longer believed anything he said. They had already made up their minds that the Rebbe was a schemer, going to cause trouble in the Holy Land. They went to the Rebbe himself, questioning him about his identity, his home, and his family. But the Rebbe stood firm and would not reveal a thing. They used every possible ruse, trying to discover some clue as to his identity. He understood their game and answered their questions in such a way that they could determine absolutely nothing. He bewildered them completely, twisting and confusing their questions until their only conclusion was that they did not know anything at all. He constantly played a different role. For example, one day he asked him if he was a Kohen, and he answered that he was. The next day, they suddenly asked him if he was Israel. He answered again that he was. They asked him, "Yesterday you said you were a Kohen. How can you now tell us that you are a Yisrael?" He answered, "Kohen is the attribute of mercy. Yisrael is another attribute. Thank God I have both attributes." They stormed at him. "It is obvious that you are the one of the oppressors, and you are using tricks, trying to hide it." They began to hate him bitterly, hurling every possible insult at him. For many days they cursed him in every way imaginable. One of the pairs was especially ugly in his words towards the Rebbe. But the Rebbe began to reach out to them, told them, "I cannot tell you the reason for my journey, for my heart has not even revealed it to my mouth. Yet, how good and pleasant is it when brothers live together in unity, even if they do not know one another's true intention." They replied, "If you tell us your reason, you will certainly receive great good." The Rebbe answered, "I do not need any good from you, and no matter what happens, I will not tell you my reasons. But if you wish, you can obtain much good from me." They said to him, "The way you speak, one would think that you are a famous tzaddik such as Rabbi Baruch, or Rabbi Shalom, or Rebbe Nachman. They speak in these mysterious ways, but we are pretty sure that you are not one of them. We know that you that your business is you're going to cause trouble for the great tzaddik Rabbi Avram. They warned the Rebbe that a letter would precede him to the Holy Land, warning the community that he was a troublemaker and a spy, so he could not mislead them. They also plotted with the ship's agent, a Polish Jew married to a Sephardic woman. His mother-in-law was an important official and had access to the palace. They went to the agent and told them, "For God's sakes, don't let this stranger leave for Israel. He is one of the enemies trying to have Jews expelled, heaven forbid. Do anything you can to stop him, and God will grant you double reward." The Rebbe and his attendant knew nothing at all about this. The two continued to insult the Rebbe in every possible way, but he endured it all, not revealing his identity despite all their taunts. He purposely tricked and confounded them, provoking them all the more. He played a different role each time they spoke to him. Once he spoke in such a manner that they were certain that he was from Lagurna. When they realized they were wrong, they were enraged. Another time, when he spoke to them, they thought that he was the son of the Maggid of Karmana, who had great opposition. In the middle of the conversation, the Rebbe suddenly began to berate the Karmaner. They screamed at him, "Isn't he your father?" They then realized that they still had no clue of his identity. Each time they spoke to him, the Rebbe seemed to have a different name. No matter what the name they used to address him, he would answer to it. Still thinking that he's the Karmaner's son, they once called him Yoshaya, which was the son's name. The Rebbe immediately responded. They were positive that they caught him this time, and told him, "Now we know for sure that you are the Karmaner's son." Then the Rebbe spoke up and argued to the contrary. In the course of the conversation, they began to speak of the gift that the Karmaner was sending to his son. The Rebbe immediately began to plead, urging them to show it to him. They were sure that they had identified him as the Karmaner's son. But then, again, he began to curse the Karmaner again. They became furious at him and berated him with an insult upon insult. They fumed at him. "Why do you constantly change your mind? One day you will have one name, and the next day another. And the name of your city seems to change just as often." The Rebbe replied, "Every name is connected to a given attribute of the attribute or sphera. Thank God I include them all." The entire story would consume many volumes. The Rebbe often woke them from their sleep and began to converse with them. They became furious, cursing him violently. One Friday afternoon, they returned from the mikveh. The Rebbe was lying on the couch barefoot, without his belt or hat. He asked them, "Why does my body feel light all week? I never feel any fatigue, but now I feel so weary that I can hardly stand up." They replied, "Every Friday afternoon, as Shabbat approaches, the soul goes up on high and the additional Shabbat soul descends. In your case, your weekday soul has left, but you are not worthy of the Shabbat soul. Therefore, your body is like a stone." The Rebbe mocked them. "Woe is to you! You cannot even answer a simple question." The Rebbe asked if he could spend Shabbat with them. They refused, inviting only his attendant. The Rebbe wouldn't eat any meat there and was forced to eat dairy foods for Shabbat. They, however, had a shochet who provided them with meat. That Friday night, they had a bitter dispute with the Rebbe, almost throwing him out of the house. Although he had not been invited to eat with them, he stopped in for a visit, but they began to quarrel with him, causing a great commotion and trying to throw him out of the house. This happened again during the day. All this was actually done intentionally. The Rebbe allowed himself to be insulted in every possible manner. He told his attendant, "These insults are very beneficial to me, clearing the way both there and back. Before I reach my goal, I must overcome great barriers beyond measure or description. Without this degradation, it would be utterly impossible for me to set foot in the Holy Land." Later, the Rebbe said explicitly, "If not for these insults, it would have been absolutely impossible for me to reach my destination." Another time he said, "I saw that I would have to die in Istanbul, but the humiliation and insults saved me. To approach the Holy Land, one must overcome many barriers.